So good evening once again to all of you from across the province, from Ear Falls all the way to Southern Ontario, and welcome to OTF Connects. We're going to be hearing from Brian Aspinall, who's an experienced OTF presenter as well as many other things, including consulting in the northwest of the province, doing a session tonight on games-based learning in math. So Brian, I'm going to turn off my mic and I'll advance to your first slide and I'll let you take over. So welcome Brian, and welcome all of you.
Thank you. Apologies for my dog, but just so you know, he's the only one that really responds to me when I do these things. It's interesting talking to a screen and not really having people respond. So I'm happy that we have 16. That's a great number. The last one I did was something like 90, so it was almost impossible to even talk to each other. And the chat got buried, as it often does, you know, on Twitter. It's so fast. So please, at any time, interrupt, ask questions, tell me I'm wrong. I love that. I'd love to learn, be challenged, push my thinking too. So without further ado, let's talk about games-based learning in math. So my math program has changed significantly in the last couple of years. Mostly because I started to incorporate games. I don't know where play took that negative stigma along the lines. There was a point, I guess about 5 years ago for me, where I started to question why play was bad. You know, we had some people saying, oh, you play a lot, you play a lot. And now I think about what we're doing in our kindergarten classrooms, and I hope everybody can embrace play in some capacity. So I'm going to share Kahoot, and I'm going to share Prodigy, and time permitting, we're going to look at coding a few simple games using the Scratch platform as well. But just to get some feedback here, and so that we can structure this based on the audience, I was thinking, you know, 30 minutes Kahoot, 30 Prodigy, and 30 coding, but I'm certainly flexible on that. So green check mark if you have. Yes, you've used Kahoot before. Green check mark if you have used Kahoot. Red X if you are new to Kahoot. So I wondered if some people had signed on to look just at Prodigy, or I was tweeting about the coding, or if maybe people were just looking at Kahoot. So it looks like the majority are new to Kahoot. So let's spend some time looking at that. So before I get into that, let's talk about Seymour Papert. Seymour Papert, in my opinion, is the math guru before we even sort of coined the term math guru. So a constructionist learning is inspired by the constructivist theory that individual learners construct mental models in order to understand the world around them. And let's pick on Bearskin Airlines. If you had shown me a picture of Bearskin a week ago, I would have laughed and said small propeller plane. But having experienced it myself for what seemed like the longest 45 minutes of my life, for the first time I was sitting on a plane where not only was I the window seat, I was, you know, also the aisle seat, and I constructed my own knowledge of Bearskin and the North and Sioux Lookout and what that was like. And I think there's a lot of value in the authentic, you know, learning by doing hands-on sort of process. So Papert said that constructionism advocates a student-centered discovery learning where students use information they already know to acquire more knowledge. So today what we talk about in education in Ontario with the challenge-based learning and, you know, the inquiry-based learning, Papert was saying it, you know, long before I was born, to be honest with you. So he said that this approach involves students drawing their own conclusions through creative experimentation and the making of social objects. So what we now would call sort of that makerspace movement that's happening. The biggest, I think, shift in my own practice is not teaching at students anymore, but assisting them to understand and helping one another to understand problems in a hands-on way, and that my role is not really to talk at them anymore, but to sort of facilitate them as they sort of go through this process of exploring the fact that, you know, math is definitely everywhere. Papert's pretty famous for saying, you know, if you go and live in another country, you're going to learn that language just based solely on your time there. And if we can create this place where kids live in what he calls Mathland, then they will learn mathematics almost as a byproduct of that environment that we create. So let's spend 30 seconds to a minute, minute and a half watching this first video. Hopefully we can put the link to the video in the chat. If you don't have a QR code scanner on another device, some of my slides have QR codes on them with the hopes that you can interact with multiple devices and also watch, you know, Kahoot and Prodigy from the teacher view on my slides and the student view on your own slide. So check out the Mathland video because it was recorded 30 years ago. And let's go with a smiley face when you are finished, and I will wait until everybody's back in about 2 minutes' time. Now, I do mute my microphone, so don't be alarmed and think your audio is cut out. It's just because I'm probably drinking some water and talking to the dog. So I will see you all in 2 minutes. Okay, I've seen a lot of smiley faces. I didn't realize it doesn't last as long as the green check marks. So there you go. I've learned something tonight. We'll go with the green check marks from here on out. I'm just curious, though. Let's use that green check mark. Green check mark if you are familiar with Seymour Papert's work, and red X if you are not. And I don't know if that's refreshed or not, but right now it's sitting at about 7 yes and 8 no. So Seymour Papert was a big proponent for coding back in the 70s and 80s, and he developed a programming language called Logo, which today is sort of what we have with Scratch out of MIT. And Papert was a big advocate for having kids create their own knowledge and understanding about mathematics by becoming doers of mathematics, which is a line that Jonathan So from the Peel Board uses. How do we make kids doers of mathematics rather than just doing math? So let's look at Kahoot. Kahoot is something that I've used to not only get sort of a diagnostic understanding of where the kids are, but I've actually also used it as a teaching tool, both to throw questions at kids they've never seen before and have them kind of do a trial and error through quizzes. And I've had kids make their own quizzes in order to make it sort of that student-centered, you know, personalized learning environment. So Kahoot is a website, web app that allows you to ask questions of your audience, but it keeps a running record of how they're doing, and it provides you with the results. I would never use it for a grade, personally. That's just my own preference, but I certainly would use it for a diagnostic assessment to get a really quick snapshot of where your class might be on whatever topic that you might be learning about. So it really has been a game changer with the BYOD policy that we have at our school, as well as the one-to-one devices we have in some of our classrooms, because we can just, you know, at the drop of a hat, fire it up and create this social environment and encourage students to play and learn through this sort of game-based environment. And it really does look like this picture in many grades. The kids do get incredibly excited. The Kahoot sets the tone with various sounds and themes and music, and the kids definitely get into it. I've noticed that my quiet students who are often reluctant to raise their hand are very successful through the Kahoot process. It does show a leaderboard after every question, and it's really nice to see kids on that leaderboard who aren't really a strong voice in the classroom. Now, having said that, of course, because there is a leaderboard, it does become competitive, and I have experienced cases where students will pretend that they've disconnected or they couldn't get onto the game because they didn't want to have the results show that they didn't know. So I think there are definitely some pros and cons to that process, but I think it really comes down to the community and the culture of your classroom and the pedagogy that's in place before you even want to begin some sort of process like this, because there is that level of competition, as there would be with any sort of games-based learning environment. But I do love that students have to interact with the device in front of them, so they answer questions on their device while looking at the projected questions. So the questions, the quiz will run on my smartboard machine, and the students will get multiple choice answers of 2, 3, or 4, and they would then follow along and answer on their own device. It really does engage the hand, it really does engage the heart, and it really does engage the mind. It really keeps them sort of, in my experience, it's kept high energy kids, if you will, focused, I think, because they have to look up and down and up and down, and they always want to look at their neighbor's screen too. So there's a lot of stimulus or stimuli while using Kahoot. Anyway, when you create a Kahoot, it's a fun learning game, and you can do it in minutes, and you can choose from millions that are already created. When I first got on Kahoot a while back, I was always making quizzes, and the community has gotten so large, I don't even bother anymore. There's, you know, the old saying, don't recreate the wheel. There's so many quizzes on the Kahoot platform. I either find one and use it, or I find one and I edit it, and it's just been absolutely quick to do. So Michelle has a question. Does it mean every student will need some sort of digital device in order to do that? Yes, it's in order to reply to the quiz or in order to participate, every student has to have a device in front of them in order to connect to it. I'm actually going to make you play a Kahoot just so you get an idea of what that looks like. So they do work on any device with an internet connection. It works over cell phone data, and it also works over Wi-Fi. It doesn't take any time to set up. As a teacher, when you've created an account and you click on play, the students don't even have to log in. They go to a unique web link, and they type in a code, and they are on in seconds flat. So I've often used it as what we call bell work in elementary school. So the bell has rung, I can have a quiz loaded, ready to go, and as the kids are getting settled, they're logging on to the Kahoot, and you know, I'm sort of doing a mental check of attendance, right? Looking around the room, seeing who's there as they're slowly joining the game. So you connect and play in real time, and you don't even have to be in the same geographic setting, which I think is kind of a unique experience. I've never done that, so tonight will be the first. Hopefully we can have, you know, all 20 or 21 of us playing on the same Kahoot from all over the province. So we'll see how that goes. It's definitely a social learning, and you know, the pedagogical impact of this process, I think, is incredibly valuable. But what I love about it is, if you think about where you are in your own practice, and we have, you know, teachers in my building who would be, I guess, I hate the stereotype, but you know, bunny ears. I'm using bunny ears. I know you can't see me. That more traditional sort of rote, repetitive question and answer, skill and drill math practice. Kahoot still does that, right? Kahoot. So you can throw a Kahoot quiz at a group of students and give them 10 questions they've never seen before, let's say multiplying or dividing fractions. That's the one I actually tried. And I'd never actually taught that. The students didn't know the rule. So let's say dividing fractions is the example. The students didn't know the rule about inverting and multiplying, but by doing the quiz, they started to recognize the pattern. So they were getting the answers wrong and wrong and wrong, but Kahoot would tell them what the right answer was, and I started to notice, without teaching the concept, by about the 5th or 6th question, they started recognizing the patterns in the wrong answers and were sort of teaching themselves, I guess, about what the rules were. So I thought that was pretty powerful. That was pretty unique. So for that teacher that still loves the quiz environment with the multiple choice questions, it's still great for that. But for somebody who believes in that constructivist approach to mathematics, the kids can still acquire their own knowledge of it by actually doing the quiz and getting the immediate feedback. They don't need me to tell them they're right or wrong, because the system will actually do that. So let's look at some of the options that we have in a Kahoot. So you can create quizzes, you can create discussions, and you can create surveys. And like I said, in the last few months for myself, I've stopped doing all of those things because there are so many built in. I have yet to find a topic that doesn't exist in the platform, which I think is super cool, because it's just absolutely blown up, this platform, in the last 6 months, I think. So motivating kids, offering individual feedback that I mentioned, and the discussion. So after a question has gone through on the Kahoot platform, you can talk about it. So you control whether you want the questions to automatically advance or whether you want them to advance on their own, and everyone can feel some level of success. You can share your Kahoots. So if you team teach like I do, if we were to create them, I can share them with colleagues, friends, and or family. And like I said, having students create their own Kahoots does provide a level of personalized learning and scaffolding and natural differentiated instruction that comes along with that. That's been really helpful in my practice. If I have students in my classroom, I teach grade 7 and 8 math. And if I have students in grade 7 and 8 on an IEP, and maybe they're just working on adding very simple fractions and they're not dealing with mixed numbers or multiplying and dividing, that's okay. They can still create a Kahoot and have a working product that they can share with their friends and their family. And it might just be about adding simple fractions, but they had to solve those simple fractions to make the quiz. So it really does provide an opportunity to have kids create content. I've really noticed it's actually, they make better quizzes than I do. And I'm sure you can all nod, you're all nodding at home agreeing that the kids will often make, better resources than we ever expect and better resources than we would do. They see the world differently than we do. So you can use it as an assessment tool. Like I said, I generally just stay in that diagnostic role. There is a time component to it. The questions are timed. If you answer them quickly and get them correct, you get more points. So I do believe there's a lot of bias in the data because kids feel pressure to answer some questions quickly because they want to be, they'd rather see their name on the leaderboard by guessing than actually doing the math. So you really do have to consider that as well. So here's my placeholder screen. I'm going to switch over to a application sharing and fire up my Chrome web browser. If you have any questions while we're waiting, this is a great chance to ask away. My microphone or chat box, I'm completely flexible. And if you don't, that's okay too. It just says hosting is paused. Susan, I don't know why that might be. Should I do a web tour instead? No, I don't like that. I'm going to do the application tour.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll be patient.
Okay,
see what happens.
Hosting is paused and a loading screen. It worked great when we tested it at 7:15.
It did. It was very fast. We'll just be patient and see what happens.
Okay. And if this doesn't work, we can still do a plan B. We can still join the Kahoot. You won't see my screen, but you can, oh no, that won't work because you have to see the questions. We'll do some problem solving on the spot. This is what we do every day in our classrooms, right? We take a risk, and if it fails, that's okay. We roll with it, and we model the process. It still says hosting is paused.
Yeah, and your voice just went all chipmunky, and all of our symbols were showing the caution dots. So I don't know if Blackboard might be having some issues right now. Okay, I'm gonna.
Okay. I'm gonna restart. I'm gonna restart sharing. I'm further than I was.
Yeah,
so
I'm seeing it now.
How about
Yay!
That? Is it choppy though, or is it okay?
No, it looks fine. Okay,
Great.
The black box came again. No, it's there again. It looks like
there?
it's a little touchy. Yeah, we're here.
Okay, we'll do our best. I'm going to click. So I've already created an account. I won't walk you through creating an account. You're all very intelligent people, probably smarter than I am. So I'm just going to click the sign in button, and you will see the splash page that everybody sees when they have an account. It's a little bit busy, in my opinion. I look at this and I get overwhelmed. I really do like simplicity, but my stats on the right, I hope you can see my mouse cursor. That's just, I've created 3 Kahoots under this account, questions in total, number of players, all that other stuff. Doesn't really mean a whole lot to me, but here are some of the quizzes I've been working on. So as you can see, I was playing with one just tonight, right before we started, just to make sure everything was ready to go. So that's the one I want to show you. In the middle of the page, you can create a quiz, you can have a discussion, or you can create a survey. And just to give you a quick snapshot, give the quiz a name, OTF webinar, and click on Go. And very straightforward, you get to ask your question right here, and you get to choose multiple choice answers at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, or 4. The 60 is the number of seconds the question will display, so the questions are capped. They will stop and shut down, so keep that in mind. It's challenging in an elementary classroom to do a Kahoot in math when a grade 7 class tends to be a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 split, as you're all aware. But in the content areas, it's fantastic because, let's say, science or history, geography, social studies, things like that. So I'm not going to create this quiz. Let's actually dive in and see what one looks like. I'm going to click on My Kahoots, and I'm just going to disregard what I was just making with that quiz. And as you can see, I was doing one for health a year ago under this account. This is a different email address. And adding fractions quiz is the one we're going to play. It's 10 questions. It shouldn't take us very long. So this is what would be projected onto your smartboard, and I'm going to actually hit full screen. Hopefully that you see that as well. Team mode is brand new, so if you had groups of students, you could do team mode. I haven't really explored it in depth too much. I do like the classic because I do want to see the snapshot from each student, because at the end of the quiz, it will plunk all their data into a spreadsheet, so you can get a quick overview of how they did. I'll scroll down. Display game pin throughout. You want to keep that at yes. That way if students are disconnected, they can see the pin and they can connect again. Show minimized intro instructions. I don't do this after I've run through it a few times with my classroom. It just shows kids how to get back on if they have disconnected. But you know how kids are with technology. They're certainly a lot faster and smarter than we are, so I tend to leave this one off. You might want to the first 1 or 2 times you do a Kahoot. Otherwise, just leave it at no. Obviously, randomized order of questions is something you may choose to do, and randomized order of answers might be another thing you wish to do. So it might appear differently on the kids' devices. I always leave play music on while waiting because it just adds a really cool effect to the whole thing and makes it certainly more smooth. Before we jump in, I just wanted to hit the questions and make sure we're all on the same page because we are all about to start the same Kahoot. So Lisa asked about code names. Yeah, you know what? The kids will enter code names even when you ask them to enter their real name. So if you wanted a diagnostic piece and you said, please enter your real name, you know how kids can be. They'll enter something goofy, and I've had kids enter each other's names and they knew and they were being funny. So, you know, like I said, you want to be careful about using it as a grade depending on the pedagogy and culture of your classroom, but you can use an alias name so that only they know who they are, and maybe you could have them come and tell you afterwards what their nickname was if you did want to use it as a diagnostic and see who was who. But clearly Anik already answered that, so I apologize for me rambling on and on. Okay, I'm wondering if the speed of the race on Kahoots leaves some behind in the dust, even though they know the answers. Yes, absolutely, 100%. So you set a time limit on a question, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever you want, and you're absolutely right. It might take a student 3 minutes to come up with an answer, and they might get that answer correct every single time. Kahoot may not be the best tool to get an accurate overview in a math classroom, but it's, you know, totally how you envision it working with your students. But yeah, that's definitely a factor. The time component is definitely a factor. So I imagine you probably just got the black box again because I had switched from my browser window, which is being shared. So I'm back on my browser window. Can you ring a bell or something to let me know that you see my browser window? Give me a thumbs up or a high five. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, let's begin. I'm going to go back to full screen. So you're going to see what's projected on the smartboard, and everybody has their phone, iPad, whatever mobile device handy, or even a secondary computer, and you can join. So ready to join? You're going to go in your web browser to You're going to go to kahoot.it in your web browser, and you're going to enter this game pin, and it's going to ask you for your name or pseudonym or nickname. Math Wizard is on. And at this point, too, if kids do put in nicknames, you'll notice that I can click on that nickname and just boot that student. So if a student puts something on that wasn't appropriate, you have that control right from the get-go to just boot them immediately. The game pin will display the entire time because I did leave it enabled. So if we do have 17 or 18 people on and we want to get started, that's okay too. And if you do get kicked out, you can rejoin at any time throughout the quiz. $13. Like I said, this is the best opportunity to take attendance, have kids get settled and situated. I have mine rolling in the morning. The kids can hear the music from the lockers or from the hallway so they know what's happening and they have their devices ready. A lot of them will save kahoot.it to their home screen. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure if there is an app. We've never bothered to even explore that. I'd be surprised if there wasn't, but we've always used the web browser just because we have so many different devices with Android, even some Blackberries, and obviously the iPads as well. So we're at 13, and I don't see any other names popping up. So those of you who wish to join can do so. I'm going to click Start. You're going to get a little welcome screen that says, "Are you ready?" with a loading bar. And question number 1 is true or false. The numerator is the bottom number in a fraction. You're going to see red. You're going to see 2 shapes on your mobile device, the triangle and the diamond, and you're going to click the appropriate answer. You'll notice answers goes up quickly. This is where the kids sometimes are more interested in clicking an answer than they are getting the right answer. As you can see, we still have 5 people that haven't answered this question. And I still hear the audio from Blackboard even though it's running in the background. So if you're lost, make a noise, hit the check mark or something so that it dings to get my attention because I am in full screen mode. So this question looks like was a minute and a half long. I didn't see where it started, but we're still down at 71 seconds. But again, pros and cons of the app. You've got really high flyer students that can do math in their head really fast while they're answering quickly and then they're waiting for a minute, where the students that aren't feel the pressure of not getting the answer so quickly, as you can imagine. So you want to be aware of that if you do use a Kahoot in your classroom. I'm going to skip just for the sake of time. So I skipped people that didn't actually answer, and you can see the results are here. I love this part, though. I don't want to look at names. I just want to look at my class and say, yeah, okay, 70% of them are getting this concept. Just a quick overview so that I know I'm doing an okay job and I know where we stand as a group. So here's the leaderboard I was talking about. It shows you the top 5. So Math Fan got the question correct and answered it the fastest, and that's why their score, whoever that was, is at 991. So the time piece plays a factor in your points, which, like I said, makes kids want to guess. Question 2, before you add fractions, they must have the same Nailed it, 100%. So I know that you folks understand that you need to have a common denominator when you're adding fractions. Let's do one more. Math Fan is still owning this at 1980, but Sarah is not super far behind. Question 3, how do you make the denominators of 2 fractions the same? And sometimes I read the answers to kids and sometimes I don't. It all depends on what the question might be. I'm not entirely sure what oh, I see, by denominator. How do you make the denominators of two fractions the same? We were split. We were split, but this now becomes your teachable moment, and you'll notice on the screen I can actually click on Show Image. So sometimes you don't even have to, if you create a quiz, you don't have to write the question in there. You might show a visual, so it could be a pie chart or something, and then the question could be related to the results of that pie chart. So in this case, I could click on Show Image. It was just the stock photo, but we could then have a conversation around it. And I would use this question as a teachable moment just because we were so split on the results. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I use Kahoot to teach the skill of test taking because of EQIO. So I would talk about why green is wrong, and then I would talk about why the orange is wrong, and why can we eliminate blue before we actually look at why the red one is correct. So I do use Kahoot to actually teach the skill of test taking. So let's do one more. It's an actual math problem. You have to solve the problem 3/4 minus 1/8. After you make the denominators the same, what do you do? Oh, you're all super smart. Okay, I think you get the idea of Kahoot. So it would continue like that. Make as many questions as you want. Make as few questions as you want. Have kids make Kahoots and share them with each other and then test each other. A lot of opportunity to do some really fun things. Just like I said, be leery about using it as a mark and consider all the other factors and stimuli that go into that. So Mallory was the winner. 4 questions correct, 3,320 points. I'm going to head back over to Blackboard and unshare the application sharing, so it might go a little goofy on your end temporarily with a black box, but hopefully you can see the placeholder slide. And I'm just going to catch up on the chat box while we do that. Nancy asked, oh, even further up, let me go back up. Just lost power on my phone, running on my iPad. That is the beauty of Kahoot, is if you get off, you can certainly get back on. It's confusing to flip from screen to screen and have symbols. It would be easier with just words. That's one thing that my students have also said, Holly, is on the smartboard, the words are written in answers and the numbers are shown, but on your phone, you just see a symbol. And I know they've tried to color code that, but we know that the colors obviously can't always be helpful with all of our students. Joyce, I apologize if the screen was scrambled, I'm going to assume it's likely a bandwidth issue either on my end or with Blackboard. Streaming, the application streaming is not always the best, but we do what we can. Yeah, the symbols are just confusing. And does Kahoot work okay on iPad? Nancy asked. I've been having issues with them. Kahoot works on any browser, on any device. It's actually not running on Flash, so you shouldn't have any problems with iPads. My grade 7 students are one-to-one iPads with a school-provided device, and we haven't had too many issues with them. The only issues we have, it's usually connectivity. It's usually the bandwidth and multiple students in the same room trying to, hit the same connection point. Laura, again, the symbols, I agree. And Joan, is it supposed to take a long time for the answer to register? It shouldn't. It's usually relatively quick, so I would assume it's probably a bandwidth thing. I've run into this problem with a lot of my students in class, and like I said earlier, it's hard to tell if they are being legitimately disconnected or they're saying they're disconnected because they don't want to participate, which often is a red flag in itself that I realize that this student is apprehensive to take the quiz because they may not know the content as well as they think I know or want them to know. So it shouldn't take very long to actually do that. So it's 8:11, and let's switch gears and have a look at Prodigy. So green check mark if you have used Prodigy before, and if you wouldn't mind, a red X indicating that this is your first time experiencing Prodigy and you're super excited and eager to check it out. Go ahead. I think Prodigy is more popular than Kahoot by the looks of it. So Prodigy came out of graduate school in Ontario, and I apologize for not remembering which campus it was. But it was grad students that were researching good math questions and decided they were going to create this game around asking good math questions to support math scores, math learning, student ability, student learning, and all those other things. So it definitely aligns 100% to all of our Ontario curriculum expectations, and they've actually grown so big. It's the fastest growing, biggest growing educational app we've ever had, and they have branched out significantly to many, many parts of the world and came right out of Ontario, which is super, super cool. It is a role-playing game. I equate it to a Final Fantasy game from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, or a Pokemon-type game in the last decade, that sort of role-playing environment where the students actually have to attack creatures and use spells and things like that. But in order to win the battles, they have to answer math questions. But what's super unique about Prodigy is you can structure the questions for each child, for each student, and they don't know. So you can have a bulk of students in your Prodigy game, and each one of them could be doing different strands of math and different grades of math without knowing it. You have full control over that, and the game itself will push the appropriate questions to them based on what you've set up. So this is being recorded, and based on the fact that 11 of you are familiar with Prodigy, I think we can skip over the video. I apologize to the few of you that are new to Prodigy, but like I said, this will be posted tomorrow. And if you would like to see the introductory video of Prodigy, it will be on this slide with this QR code and with this link. And maybe Susan can fire this link into the chat window as well so that you can grab the link and refer to it later on.
Yeah, sorry, just doing that.
Do you want to skip it? You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good. Your slideshow in my PowerPoint is doing bizarre things.
Is it?
I had all the links ready, but just hold on. I can probably get it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, your slides have gone weird. I'm going to close it and open it again, but Prodigy, okay. I've got the link here. Sorry, I had to do it again.
That's okay. I think it's the application sharing and then my bandwidth and all of those variables rolled together. Okay, great. There's the link in the chat window. Thank you very much, Susan, for doing that. So I'm going to try and do a screen share again. Hopefully it works just fine. I'll do what I did last time, which was to stop and start it again. And give me a ding, give me a green check mark or something that you can see Prodigy so that I can hear it in my audio, if you wouldn't mind, that you do see the Prodigy screen right now.
Yep, we can see it.
Can you give me a green check mark? Or a mic? You're good? You can see it? Okay. So I'm going to log into Prodigy. Hopefully. Maybe it is a bandwidth issue on my end.
I'm not sure it's your end. I'm seeing a lot of symbols in the membership
virtue, right?
list, especially in the participant list.
No? Oh, okay. A lot of yellow indicating that everybody it's
Let's
Blackboard.
blame
We'll blame
Blackboard.
How's that?
Well, it's coming. We're being patient.
Not my internet. Yeah, which is tough to do when you have 25 grade 7s watching this happen on a smartboard. Okay, so I'm going to assume my audio is still okay. I hope that my screen sharing isn't, making this worse. There's a class code at the top that I want to point out. Students connect using a class code, so they don't need an email address to sign up. So the app does respect privacy in that regard. It does ask for names, however, and you can use an alias if you choose to do so, or if you would like them to do so. As a teacher, on the teacher side of things, you get to view everything, the number of questions they've answered, what strands it comes from. What I like about Prodigy when you first sign up is it asks you where you're from, and then it builds the game around your curriculum. So when you first create a Prodigy account, it'll actually ask you what school and district you're in, and most of them in Ontario are listed, and it'll ask you to choose the grade and strand that you want to work on, and it will compile really good questions based on that. So it takes all of the prep work out of it. And like I said, if you have a student working on an IEP, after the student has joined your class, you can go in afterwards and you can choose a different grade or a different strand. And so while everybody in the class is playing Prodigy for 20 minutes, or I actually use Prodigy as homework. This has become my homework. I want you to go home and play Prodigy for 20 minutes after you're done reading at night. And everybody's playing Prodigy. They have no idea that they're being asked and they're answering different questions from their peers. I'm still just getting a loading, spinny thing. Bummer. I'm just gonna, if you see a black box, it's because I want to get caught up on the chat window. Sarah says Prodigy was having login issues this week too. What if you teach multiple grades? Great question, Sarah. You can have as many kids as you want connected to your Prodigy account. I actually team teach 2 math classrooms, so we have 57 students in our class, and you can just go through and you can change the grade level. When they jump on, they have to pick the grade they're in. Now, obviously, sometimes if you have students in a modified program, they're still going to pick their grade level. You can go in and override that after they've become a member of your class. I've looked at some, let's look at the other end of the spectrum. I've had kids in my class. I've looked at them and I said, I know you're in grade 7. Pick grade 8 when you sign up for this account. You'll get some more challenging questions. So it does work both ways. And I'm still just getting a spinny screen, which is incredibly unfortunate. I know we had some people that were new to Prodigy on here, and I do know that the majority of us on tonight had used Prodigy before. So kind of that double-edged sword. Maybe we'll give it 30 seconds. I could refresh the page. I'm going to refresh the page actually now because it looks like it's already stopped loading, and I'm just getting this spinny doohickey thing. This will be really weird for anyone that watches the recording tomorrow.
That's true. I never really thought about the recording part of it. Oh well, but they'll empathize.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What can you do? It's still just spinning. Okay, I'm going to let that spin in the background, and I'm going to put up a black box. And I'm going to go back to just sharing my slides. I can switch back if it does load, because I'm going to have to go with the majority here. And let's do a green check mark if you've never coded a simple math game and that is something you're interested in. And let's go with a red X if you are not interested in doing that. So green check mark if you would like to learn how to code a simple game or have students code a simple game while we wait for Prodigy to load, because we can always go back to that too. Well, we have 8 and we have 2, so I think I'm going to try that. I'm going to do that.
Of course,
I
think that's a great
if we just
solution.
switch gears and we can come back to Prodigy at the end if it does load. So, okay, let's look at coding some simple math games, because there's a lot of opportunity for multiple entry points, differentiated instruction. It scaffolds itself super nicely, just like Prodigy would. So I'm going to try and share my browser again. I'm going to head back over to Chrome. Unfortunately, Scratch does not work on many of our iOS devices, so you can follow along what it is that we're doing, but preferably you want to be on a PC or a Mac. So this, on my end, says my screen sharing is live. So do you see Scratch? Can you just give me a quick yes on the mic? Not yet? No, doesn't look like it. Okay. Let me try one more time. Almost. How about that? How about now? I see you. There you go. I'm just going to leave it here. I don't want to do an Alt-Tab and go back because you're going to see the pixelated window, so I just have Scratch rolling on my computer.
Yep,
Can you just jump on the mic and say it's okay?
I don't know if you heard me, Brian.
Okay, great. So Scratch, like I had said earlier, Scratch was developed. Yeah, can you hear me? I heard you. All good. I see. Got it. Yes, all good. So I'm going to keep going. Interrupt me if it's not working. So Scratch was developed over a decade ago now out of MIT by Mitch Resnick and his team as sort of the follow-up to the Logo programming environment that Seymour Papert had developed in the 80s when he was trying to create a constructivist approach to learning mathematics. And I absolutely 100% am a massive fan of Scratch coding. Some really hardcore computer science people would probably like to debate that block-based coding is not computer science, but if you're looking at the logical reasoning, the spatial reasoning, the algorithmic thinking, then it is very much computer science, and it is very much coding without having to write syntax. I don't want to use a program-based learning, a syntax-based programming language in elementary school because I don't want students to get frustrated over trying to find where semicolons go and where brackets go and spend hours debugging code. I don't want to do that. I want to focus on the math concepts. So Scratch is a block-based environment where kids are not actually writing code, they're linking it together. It's built in like you would with Lego, and they're actually creating animations by writing procedures. So link it to your literacy, create an algorithm. What is it? How do you brush your teeth in grade 2 health class? What does that look like? You can write an algorithm for doing that, or write an algorithm for making toast. And let's plug it into the Scratch environment now and sort of follow their instructions and see if we can create some really cool things. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Create. And I'm going to wait. It says it's loading. Here we go. And it'll take you to the Scratch interface. So you don't even need an account to play with Scratch. You just need an account if you want to save and publish and share your work. But in order to just get on and have a go at it, you just have to click on Create. And I'm just getting a white screen. Maybe this time it says it's loading. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if my bandwidth was also a factor. We do live in the country, and we are on an antenna. We don't have DSL or cable out here. It's usually good at this time of night, though. I've done these webinars, and it's been okay.
I suspect it's probably a combination because there's been lots of symbols showing up consistently on everybody. And yes, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me, Brian. My mic's been clicking on and off. It looks like it's on, but it isn't. Can anybody hear me? Okay, good. Thank you. Brian, we're seeing a black box right now. I see red dots beside Brian, so we may have lost Brian.
I can hear you. I'm still on.
Here we go.
You were cutting in and out. How about?
Yeah, you were too.
How about
and
now?
I see red dots beside everybody right now. Yeah, it's coming too. Your screen is coming.
I'm still here. Can you hear me? Yes? And my audio's back?
Yes.
Lisa Floyd says that she can hear. Okay. But my audio is okay. Everyone says my audio is working.
Brian, Susan's mic is not
Green
working.
check mark. You can hear me?
Brian, can you hear me? Susan's mic is not working.
Okay. I do see that in the chat. Yes, I can. Okay. Thank you. I will just keep going. Can you see the Scratch page? Great. Okay. So this is the Scratch environment. In this panel here with the white screen and the cat, this is where you actually see the animation if you're making a game, a greeting card, any form of media. So I do use it in my language arts classroom as well, not just in my math classroom. It can be very cross-curricular in that nature. In the middle of the screen, you'll see a small panel that has all of the instructions. These are the code snippets. So move 10 steps is a piece of code, but the kids don't actually have to write the syntax to make the cat move. They can actually drag it out. You'll notice that these categories are color-coded, which I think is incredibly powerful because it helps me know where to find certain ones. So if I'm looking for a clear, I know that it's green, it's got to be underneath pen. If I want to remove it, I simply drag it back to that middle panel and I let go, and it will disappear. Same thing with the move. I can bring that off and I can let it go. So the right side of the screen is the place where you put all of that syntax in order to make the cat do something. We call the cat a sprite, as you can see in the bottom left corner. A sprite is just a graphic or clip art in the game or animation you're making. So whenever I'm introducing Scratch to people, I think about Pac-Man, the original Pac-Man. The Pac-Man character or Miss Pac-Man character would be a sprite, and each ghost would also be a sprite, and each ghost would behave differently than the other ghosts. Otherwise, the game would be incredibly boring. So each sprite in Scratch also would have its own set of instructions, its own algorithm, its own procedure, its own set of code snippets, because you want each sprite to do different things. So first thing I want to do is let's do a quick game that will ask kids a bedmask question. Apologies to my primary, junior, and senior teachers in the room, but let's focus, I guess, on some intermediate. So I'm going to have the cat ask me a bedmask question, and I have to answer it, and the cat will tell me whether I'm right or wrong. But we're going to actually code the cat to do that. So in a computer science world, everything is event-driven. You can't log into Facebook without clicking the login button. So the computer code is always listening for human interaction. And so because of that, we're going to click on events, and we're going to start with a when green flag clicked. So if you drag a when green flag clicked out to the code panel, that will start the application. You'll notice there's a big stop sign here and a green flag just to the left of it. So pressing the green flag would then trigger whatever I connect to this code snippet to actually start. So I'm going to start with when green flag clicked, and I want the cat to talk to me. So I went over to looks, and I dragged out a say command. And you'll notice, based on the shape, it looks like these two should link together. And as I get close, that white highlight sort of appears to indicate, almost like they're magnetic and they do want to link together. And if I let go, they do grab each other like a magnet. So that implies that these two pieces of code will actually work together. So say hello for 2 seconds. When I click the green flag, my cat says hello for 2 seconds, and then it disappears. So you can have some fun dialogue. I've had students write stories in here. So say hello for 2 seconds, and then say, can you answer this question? ? And I'm going to pull out one more say, and I'm going to actually ask the question here. Let me just stop the program because it's running. So let's do 3 times 2 minus 6. Let's just leave it at that. I guess the answer would be 0. But this is, again, like I said, it's the students that were actually creating this game would have to understand the rules for order of operations in order to make this actually work properly. So I'm going to run the program and see what happens. Hello, can you answer this question? 3 times 2 minus 6. And because you and I know as the coder that the answer is 0, I'm going to have some fun, and I'm going to actually make a variable, because although my students are learning about bedmasks and constructing their own knowledge of order of operations, I want to introduce some components of algebra. And Scratch is a great platform to spiral your math so that you don't teach strands of math in isolation. I know that a lot of our districts in Ontario have numeracy frameworks, and if you teach out of a textbook like I do, on many cases, you sort of teach these strands in isolation. And Scratch allows you to explore different areas of math if you're looking at number sense, for example. But now I get to have a conversation with kids about what a variable is in an algebra classroom, and I get to have conversations about what a variable is in a science classroom, and have them realize and understand that a variable is simply a placeholder. So I'm going to make a variable, and I'm going to call it answer, and I'm going to click OK. And because I'm the coder in this game, I know that the answer to this BEDMAS question is actually 0. 3 times 2 is 6 minus 6. So I'm going to drag out a set answer to 0 because I know that the answer to this question is going to be 0. You'll notice the variable is listed here, and it's got a check mark beside it. That makes it appear in the panel. I don't want it to show. Think of this variable as the back of the textbook. This is the answer to the question, so I don't want it to show at all. Instead, I want the user to enter a number. So in order to do that, we're going to head over to sensing, and you'll see under sensing that there is an ask command. And if you drag out an ask, by default it says, what is your name? I've actually made a mistake here, and I have to fix it. This say command should be the ask command. Bev, go ahead. Microphone or chat box is okay with me. The Scratch website encourages it to be used in grades 4 and up, but I don't think that they have changed that part of the website in the better part of a decade. In my honest opinion and experience, it can be used with kids in primary. It is a little bit advanced, but our kids are becoming second nature to this stuff. I don't really want to put an age limit on it. I would certainly try it in grades 3 and up. There is a Scratch Junior version, which is an iPad app that is geared towards primary students, and it's got the same categories as Scratch. The instructions are just very, very, very simple, and that's called Scratch Junior, and that's available on the iPad. And like I said, they've geared that towards primary students. So back to the code window. I have to fix this. So I'm going to drag these 3 code snippets off, and then I'm going to drag the set code snippet off to sort of separate them like that. And then I'm going to put the ask back where the say was, and this part is going to be my math question 3 times 2 minus 6. And I can actually get rid of this say, so I will drag it off screen again. And the reason we want to do ask, as soon as it's an ask, when I hit the green flag, the input box appears, prompting a user to now respond. So that's what makes it different than the purple say commands. The say commands won't pop up that box. So ask 3 times 2 minus 6, and wait. So like I said earlier, everything is event-driven. The program is not going to do anything until a user clicks on the check mark here or actually hits the enter key. But I have to store the information that the user is entering in this box. For example, if I just put a number in now, like 73, and I pushed enter, nothing happens. I haven't programmed it to do anything. It's not storing 73. It just sort of disappears and is non-existent. So under data, I have to make another variable, and I'm going to call this one user answer. I regret calling my first variable answer, but again, this is a teachable moment in naming conventions. I'm getting really tired of seeing my kids submit something to me on Google Drive that's named my doc. I have no idea, what my doc is. So another great opportunity to talk about naming conventions with variables and with file names. So user answer is going to refer to what the person is entering. My other answer variable is going to store the correct answer. I can leave it checked now because I don't mind. Actually, just to show you that it does work, I'm going to leave this variable here. So now I'm going to enter 73 like I had done, and when I push the return key, you'll see user answer set to nothing because I got ahead of myself. I actually have to drag set user answer to, head back over to sensing, answer. Now I know that was fast, apologies for that. I have to increment the variable, so set user answer equal to, and then the blue answer found under sensing refers to whatever the user puts into that input box before they hit enter. So let me run through that one more time. Hello, can you answer this question? 3 times 2 minus 6. Now if I put 73 and I hit enter, it should be stored at the top. And it is. So it says user answer is set to 73, which is exactly what I wanted. Now, I'm going to put my set answer to 0 back in. You know what I should do? I'm going to do what I said I should teach my kids to do, and I'm going to rename this. Correct answer is the name of my variable now. So correct answer and user answer. So set correct answer to 0 because 3 times 2 minus 6 is the answer. Now we get to deal with some Boolean logic, which is always fascinating to me to teach kids about Boolean logic in elementary school, which just means you're comparing two things, and whatever the comparison is, if the outcome is true, something will happen. If the outcome is false, something else will happen. So let me pick on a Facebook login again. If you enter your username and it's found in Facebook's database, but the password doesn't match, then the Boolean logic would respond with a fail, and it would tell you that your password is incorrect. If you had entered your username and a correct password, and the Facebook database returned that both information was found, the Boolean logic would be true, and then Facebook would redirect you to your home page within the site. So what we're going to do now with the Boolean logic is we're going to compare user answer with correct answer. And if they are the same number, the cat will say you're correct. If the numbers are different, it means the user entered something that was incorrect, and the cat will then tell you. So head back over to data and plunk a user answer into the first box and a correct answer into the second box like that, and head over to control, which is where you'll find the if statement for the Boolean logic, and we're going to grab an if and plunk it there. You'll notice the hexagon, 6-sided shape, fits the green 6-sided shape. So that should fit in there, and it does. You'll notice it's got the white outline around it, implying that those do work together. So I can plunk that in there just like that. If user answer equals correct answer, then. Pause. I'm going to pause. Another teachable moment, and I love doing this live with my class. I'm actually not using the correct if statement because I do want the cat to tell me if I'm incorrect. I should use the if blank then else, and I'll tell you why. So now I'm going to put that in there. So if the user enters 0 and it does in fact equal the correct answer, the cat will say, "Yay, you are correct." Else implies that the user had entered a different number, and I want the cat to say something else. Let me pull that back off screen and pull it up there so they link together. And head back over to looks and say, not for 2 seconds, how about say forever, correct, exclamation mark. And I'll just leave it like that. And under the else, I will say, Sorry, that is not correct. Please try again. As so. Encourage your students to test often, hit the green flag often. I equate it to proofreading a lot when kids are writing. It's easier to proofread as you go, almost sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. Same sort of idea here. It's easier to debug 5 lines of code versus 55 lines of code. So encourage them to hit the green flag often. The program gives them the immediate feedback. They don't have to come to you. You don't have to know anything about Scratch. They will construct their own knowledge of the Scratch platform while they're building these things. And I hope you realize that as I was building it and moving my mouse around, we have an X and a Y value sitting here. So we talked about algebra making this game. The whole game itself revolves around geometry because we have the Cartesian grid exposed right here, and we're actually creating a game that's going to ask about order of operations. So like I said, great opportunity to spiral your math beyond the fishbowl strands. Let me hit the green flag and see what happens. Hello. Can you answer this question? 3 times 2 minus 6. I'm going to put 0 and hit enter, and if I've done this correctly, the cat will say correct. Correct! And he'll say correct forever. That's the end of my program. Nothing will happen at this point because I haven't coded it to do anything. Perfect. Okay. But we want to encourage our students to consider all factors. So we have to run the program again and enter an incorrect answer to make sure our program is running properly. So I'm going to go back to 73. It's the number in my head tonight. When I push the enter key, the cat should say, sorry, that is not correct. Please try again. And he does. So in about 10 lines of code, I have a working application that asks me a BEDMAS question. I had to use algebra to do it. I was exposed to geometry to make that happen. And I have a working product. So it builds confidence in all of your kids because they can build something that's at their own ability, at their own levels, and they can ask math questions that are, like I said, at their own grade level there. Take it one step further. I just want to briefly mention, I know we're running out of time, there's a sound tab. You can have students record their voice instead of asking the question. So I might record myself saying, what is 3 times 2 minus 6? What is 3 times 2 minus 6? See if that worked. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. Okay. And under scripts, instead of the ask, or not instead of the ask, right above the ask, I'm going to hit sound, and I'm going to play sound. I believe I have to save this. I might have to re-record it. That's okay. I'm going to hit the drop down, and I'm going to hit record now. Oh, you know what I had done? I had recorded it over meow. There's a default sound. The cat meows by default, so it's not named appropriately, but the meow sound is what I had recorded, so that does work. So I'm going to head back and play sound meow. I hope you can hear this. I don't know if you can. It's coming through my headphones and back into the mic, but I should hear myself and then see the question prompt. Can you answer this question? And there, oh, and we got the meow at the end. It just nearly gave me a heart attack. That came through pretty loud. So a lot of opportunity. Our French teacher likes to use Scratch to do really cool things in French using components of math because, you know, in our younger grades, French is all about the oral communication. I like to use it in my language arts program as well to have kids actually record their own voice and do some really cool things in that regard. So because we're down to about 9 minutes, I don't want to start anything else in Scratch. I'll show you the operators quickly. We have the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. There's a random component, which I've used in the intermediate grades to create probability simulators. If you had students pick a random number between 0 and 1, it would simulate a coin toss because there's 2 outcomes. You could have them pick a random number between 1 and 6, which would simulate rolling a die, which is pretty unique. Of course, less than equals greater than, the Boolean logic and or not, and some other more advanced things there. There's a round, and square root also exists, so you can use that to have kids build math games. I would love to open the floor up to any questions. I'm sure there's a bajillion of them. I hope that you're all still there, and I haven't just been talking for the last 25 minutes to nobody, because that would be a little bit bizarre. But hey, I've been known to do that on occasion. So 8 minutes left. If you have any questions, I see one in the chat box about Prodigy. It's still spinning, unfortunately. I tell you what. I'm just getting caught up in the chat box. Somebody had asked about Prodigy. I'll be more than happy to record my own 2-minute Prodigy demo and throw it up on YouTube if that's something you think would be beneficial if you're interested in that.
And Brian, if you share,
Sarah,
if you get around to doing that,
if you'd like. Nancy says yes. I wonder if that was hello. Your mic went away again. I'd be more than happy to do that and put it on my YouTube. I don't know if we can add it as a resource on the past webinars section for this webinar. I think that's a possibility. I will definitely tweet it and throw it up on my blog too at brianaspinall.com. I tell you what, because of the nature of it not working, I will get on that in the next couple of days, and I will have something out by the end of the weekend, I think. A quick demo of Prodigy from the teacher side. Now this is weird. I have to thank myself for doing a webinar because Susan's mic's not working. So thank you, Brian, for this wonderful webinar tonight. I'm sure I think it was the best one that has ever been done. So kudos to you for that. Just kidding. I can see you in the chat box. Any last minute questions? Okay. Let me do my best to improvise this part. OTF would love it, and I would appreciate it if you could spend 30 seconds and go through the feedback at that link very quick, and it really helps them plan their sessions, and it helps me learn about my own presentations and what my own next steps are. So I would really appreciate your authentic feedback to help me in my own learning to get better at delivering sessions.
Oh, I'm trying again. Hey, I've got a little mic symbol. Yay! Brian, that was awesome. Good job. So the link on the screen is live. Both of those are live. Yeah. So you can click on them. I also put them in the chat a little bit higher up. So thank you very much. Just like Brian said, they use the feedback. It drives their funding if they get feedback from folks, and they're looking at stuff for next year already. So thank you for doing that. That's very much appreciated. You can also print a certificate. I don't do paper, but some people still have files of paper certificates. So if you want one, there it is. There's lots of great sessions coming up in the next little while. I should have actually deleted the top 2, but till the end of April, there's some great stuff coming up next week, so sign up. And we've got a whole month of May coming, and there's good things there as well. You probably know about the subsidy from the ministry if you're taking a math or a technology course right now, or at some point in the future over the next year. So I'll put it back to this slide, and phew, we got through it. Brian, thanks for all your improvising tonight. I think, okay, my mic is gone.
Oh, wait, May 4th. I hear you. Okay. Well, you know what? I can do one quick shameless plug, and that says, please come back on May the 4th. We're doing a webinar on Makey Makey and Makerspace and how to use the Makey Makey as an extension of Scratch to actually provide a hardware tangible to the Scratch platform in the math environment. So I've used the Makey Makey to have kids actually touch things in the physical space to flip coins in the Scratch environment. So there's my shameless plug because I was able to do that. Thank you, everyone.